Good morning and a very warm welcome to the Sport for Business Daily. We're joined this morning by Peter Conway. Peter is the chair of Swim Ireland, and we're here to talk about a brand new campaign which is launching today as well to get people back into the water. A very good morning to you, Peter.
Good morning, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
It's absolute pleasure. It's been a real challenge for swimming in the pool environment. A lot of people found a return to the sea during lockdown if they were fortunate enough to be living within 2 kilometres or 5 kilometres of the coast. But many of them will have been driving past or jogging past the big empty pools that were sitting there. How much of a blow was it to the infrastructure of the sport that we were shut down for such a long period?
It certainly was a major body blow, Rob, for the period of time that the pools weren't accessible to us. I mean, you do highlight the fact that there's been a surge and a resurgence in open water swimming, and that's a fantastic piece, and that has happened around the coastline and through the whole country. But for our pool swimmers, particularly for our competitive pool swimmers, it has been a really tough time not having any access to pools in the same way as for our participative members as well. Groups, schools, smaller clubs, life-saving clubs, across the board. I suppose it was highlighted how much a part of communities swimming is during the lockdown.
And you were involved in a water safety campaign as well over the course of it, because the more we've been promoting people to staycation within Ireland, the greater an importance on learning how to swim, knowing what to do in the water and how to behave safely. So you were promoting that water safety at a time when you were kind of deprived of the main avenues through which you could teach it. Is there a gap that's formed there, or will we be able to pick that up in terms of the schools and the clubs quite quickly now that we're actually back in the water?
Well, there should be a strong crossover. I mean, you highlight the fact that we promoted safety as a major piece of open water. I mean, and it's the fundamental first decision that anybody's got to make whenever they're particularly near open water or in places where there mightn't be lifeguards, even where there are lifeguards. The first question is this safe? Are we in company that will keep us safe? And that's the overriding piece there. But coming back to pools, then I mean, in safety obviously is a very big aspect there as well. But you've got controlled conditions, you've got lifeguarding, you've got the facilities that are provided at pools for clubs when they come back.
You've created a video to promote this campaign as well. I've seen a first cut of it. It'll be live on the Sport for Business website this morning as well. It is the voice of the swimming pool in a sense. It's a good piece. If I was to actually interview a swimming pool, how would he be doing financially as a result of the lockdown? Because the costs of keeping a big facility like that going they're not immaterial, and it's probably been a bigger hit for you and for the swimming pool operators than it would have been if you were running an athletics track or a football pitch or something like that.
Well, I think the voice of a pool would be highlighting that to you. I think like an awful lot of businesses, and a lot of the pools in Ireland are run as commercial entities, unlike the likes of, say, GAA clubs or rugby clubs or soccer clubs, or a lot of other sports where they would have their own. The clubs might have their own facility. In the case of the greater majority of clubs who are swimming, they are using the facilities of another organisation or another entity. And for sure, as you mentioned earlier on, even when pools were closed, there was a level of maintenance that had to be kept. Now, there has been funding provided, as you're aware. You have overall of government funding of around about €70 million for sports. You have the Club Resilience Fund of 15 million, of which a portion will come to swimming. And then there was an additional fund set up of 2.5 million euro, which is due to be distributed amongst facilities. So they're the government supports that will be in place following application processes.
And that's a case of swimming clubs and pools putting themselves forward with your assistance in that to actually.
Correct. That there will be, and my understanding is that I think we're just at the closing date, or probably just past the closing date for applications. So those applications will be there at present. They'll be assessed by Swim Ireland, and this is for the Resilience Fund, and will be processed then in tandem with Sport Ireland. And go back to the clubs afterwards, but there's that strain. So I mean, there's a financial strain for clubs, but there's a regional strain. There's a strain that's placed upon facilities that works its way through to clubs, to groups, and to schools who use the pools, and that filters further to families and to individuals who will have suffered in the downturn that has happened, and who face the challenges of what is an expensive sport if you're participating. So
it is a case of having stuck together through the dark days and needing to stick together now through the hopeful recovery. You published your annual report over the course of the summer as well. It was very positive at the time. So you've done well. You've brought together a new board as well, including Aidan McLaughlin from Indeed, who's a good friend of Sport for Business. Things are looking good on the administration side. I have to ask though, now that I have you here, there has been talk over the course of the last few weeks about your CEO, Sarah Keane, in relation to the vacant position as CEO of the FAI. She's been a great servant to swimming and to Swim Ireland down the years. Do you hope that she might be for years to come into the future, or what do you think?
Thanks for that, Rob. What I would say is that, as you know, and I know, and everybody who's involved in sport in Ireland knows, Sarah has done a fantastic job in her time with Swim Ireland, and she's had a major impact. She's also had a major impact with her involvement with the Olympic Federation. Beyond that, I don't think I'd like to comment any further, only to say that we appreciate Sarah as she is at this point in time. And she is a great asset.
That's fair enough, and we obviously wish the very best of luck, no matter who makes the decision, whether it be her or whether it be somebody else. We know that she's going to be in sport for quite some time, wherever that may be. But it has been fabulous with swimming all the way up until this point. So the Return to Water campaign is kicking off now. You want people to realise that things are back to as much of normal as we possibly can be. You want to get people back into the water. What's the one message that you would actually say to an audience of people out there who have been sort of worried about the idea of getting back into changing rooms and getting back into an indoor sports environment?
Well, from Swim Ireland's perspective, we really would like to welcome everybody back to the pools, whether they be swimmers, water polo players, divers, competitive or participative swimmers. There are loads of challenges facing us. There are challenges around social distancing in particular. There are new arrangements. There will be challenges around the numbers who can swim at a pool. And there's a lot of learning for all of us in this. Some of our clubs, particularly our competitive clubs, are back in the water for a number of weeks now. And the reports are that nearly each time there's a training session, there's a little bit of learning on how the system might be improved, how spacing is managed better for swimmers within the pool, how breaks are managed, how hydration is managed, all the pieces that we would probably have taken for granted prior to this. Similarly, there are challenges facing clubs and facilities around the amount of time swimmers or athletes or even normal participants on a daily basis, where traditionally pools might have operated on an hourly basis. Now we're looking at pool users leaving early so that facilities can be cleaned down after them, temperature checks beforehand, and all the bits that go with that. So it's probably focusing a lot of attention on how best to use the time that's available in the water.
It's going to be a big year. It was going to be a big year in 2020. It will be in 21 now. You've got, a developing top class group of swimmers under the guidance of John Rudd, people like Shane Ryan and in the Paralympic world, people like Ellen Keane and so many more that will be putting themselves forward. You've also got the backing of Tesco as well, Tesco Ireland on board now as sponsors for the year. Are you confident now in the beginning stages of the recovery that this will be a year that delivers on the promise which it should have been for this year?
Yeah, I would be confident. I mean, you mentioned some key elements there. We have a very strong team within Swim Ireland across the disciplines. And if you look particularly at, you mentioned John Rudd and the performance team and preparation for next year. Yes, there will be challenges in the same way as there are challenges for each of the nations that'll be heading to the Olympics next year. But I know that John and his team are particularly focused on using the time that's there now to the advantage of our athletes. You mentioned earlier on, you mentioned particularly Aidan McLaughlin from Indeed, who is one of our independent directors on the board. And we're fortunate as well that we have a strong board with voices from around our sport and our independent directors outside. We believe we're in a strong position to move forward as events unfold.
Great. Well, the very best of luck. It's not an easy gig being a sporting administrator at the best of times, but in these current worst times, it becomes even more challenging still. So the very best of luck to you and all of the team at Swim Ireland, and let people be aware that swimming pools are open for business, they're healthy, they're safe, and the return to water should be on everybody's agenda. Thank you very much, Peter Conway from Swim Ireland.
Thanks very much, Rob.